Spark Infinity. How are you? My internet connection isn't looking great. I hope it's okay. So, first and foremost, I wanted to give a big shout out to Cahill Camden. Last night's stream, we had such an amazing conversation and so many valuable takeaways in there. If you didn't watch it already, make sure to find it within the Facebook group Spark Infinity or on my YouTube channel, David Andrew Weeb Creative Expansion. Either one will work. Cahill and I ended up talking for something like 70 minutes, possibly even a little bit longer than that. And I'm pretty sure we could have kept going. That's how great of a conversation we were having. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Acknowledge Cahill. Today, I wanted to share a story about making conscious choices. And this kind of almost interweaves with a bunch of stories, but I'm going to try to tell it as simply as possible. Many of you will know, or if you have interacted me with for any length of time, that my father passed away when I was 13. And how that went was I was going to school. I was in grade 8 at the time in Japan. Grade 8 was the last year I was in Japan, so I was there for 8.5 years. And I got called to the principal's office, which, as we all know, it's like that's never a good thing. And in that school, there was a teacher who was kind of known to be somewhat physically violent as well. Like, and again, like I said, it interweaves with many stories. That's a whole other story I need to tell. But I was like, if I'm being summoned to the principal's office, what do I have to deal with? So that's my immediate reaction. So nervously, I head down, and then I'm told that my father is in the hospital. So I go to the hospital, and my father is in a coma. And after 10 days in a coma, he ended up passing away. That was pretty much the moment, or shortly thereafter, that I began to feel powerless over life. I felt like no matter what I did, life was just what was going to happen to me. That's sort of the internal belief that started cementing itself within me. And so I think around the time I was 14, I started writing songs, melodies and lyrics. Not anything great, not anything stand out or stellar, just learning. And at 15, I ended up performing in front of an audience. That was the moment I said, I love this. I want to perform in front of an audience again. I'm hooked. So I want to become a musician. At that point, I had performed a rap. 17, I ended up learning guitar. So music ended up being this massive personal development journey for me. I released my first solo album, David Andrew Weeb, in 2006. And that's kind of the point at which it's like, I want to book gigs. I want to get my music out there. What else can I do? MySpace, and then Facebook was sort of starting to become a thing. And I learned about music distribution. And my buddy told me, I don't know where he learned about it, maybe on a podcast, maybe on the radio or something. And I heard about CD Baby. And CD Baby at the time was helmed by Derek Sivers, who to this day is still big inspiration and mentor at a distance for me. And when I signed up for CD Baby and got my music distributed across all the popular platforms of the time, I don't think we had Spotify yet, but Apple or iTunes, I guess, at the time would have been one of the big ones. Once my music was all out there, I got an email from Derek, and it was like, here are all the things I ever learned. Here are my best tips for anyone looking to get into a music career. Read the whole thing, thought it was amazing, had huge takeaways. I think it pointed to his blog at the time, and I read and learned additional things there. Somehow, some way, I feel like Derek probably mentioned Steve Pavlina. I think that's the only way I would have come across Steve Pavlina in the first place, is because of Derek Sivers. Steve Pavlina, some of you will know, some of you probably don't know, he's the #1 online personal development blogger, even today, and back then, and still now. And I discovered his website, and every single day I would go and I would read. And I think the first thing I read was Do It Now, and it's a huge article, over 5,000 words. But it basically tells the story of how he was able to graduate with a university degree in 1 year. Not in 4 years, as most are known to do. He said, that's a chump's pace. I can do that much quicker. He coaxed the administrator into making it happen. And somehow, some way, he was able to graduate in a full year without really breaking a sweat. And Derek did that too. So I'm assuming he took inspiration from Steve Pavlina. I think that's the connection, but I could totally be wrong on that. And that inspired me in a really big way. So I think I was hooked, and I said, okay, I got to read Steve Pavlina every single day. And at some point, I came across this term. It said conscious decisions, making conscious decisions. So again, up until that point, I was feeling powerless. I felt like I had no say over what would happen in life. It was just whatever happened to me, which I think is a common thing. And many of us do feel jaded and resigned and cynical and feel like we're subject to whatever life ultimately gives us or doesn't give us, right? But when I read that term, something clicked for me. I said, oh, I can make some choices about some things. I can make some choices about whether or not I read. I can make some choices about whether or not I practice guitar or make music. I can make some choices about meditation. I can make some choices about my diet. And so before long, it started very simply, right? But those seeds were planted. I started with very simple things that anyone could do. And for me, were not a massive stretch. I was still in my 20s. I was still in a discovery phase. I believe I wasted as much time as anyone else did in the world. But I think in my mid 20s, that's kind of when I said, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to do something. And I started blogging and I started making pixel art. I did a lot of stuff that made no sense. I drew stuff. I learned the keyboard or tried to learn the keyboard and the piano. I tried a lot of stuff that didn't really make sense. And eventually, though, that created a work ethic and that created a routine that I could follow through on. And then it allowed me to be much more productive in the things that I decided I wanted to apply myself to later. So that's the power of conscious decisions. I hope you got something out of this. I hope you'll let me know what you got out of this in the comments. And I'll see you again soon, probably tomorrow. But if I don't, have a great weekend, Spark Infinity. Thanks so much for tuning in. Real, many of you are lined up to have conversations with me. Have not forgotten about you. Okay, I'm gonna get back to you. Some of you have already booked in, but I am gonna get back to all of you, and I'm looking to get my calendar scheduling tool set up correctly. Really, you had to do this manually. You're using your hand saying yes, I'll be on your show. So I'm gonna have to do something about that as soon as I can. But I'm acknowledging that I want to have you on the show. I look forward to having you on the show. I'm really excited about it. Okay. So I look forward to having a conversation with you, but that's all.